You've heard the promise, do a behavior for 21 days and it becomes automatic. Here's the truth you can actually use today. Habits don't flip on like a light switch. They phase in like a sunrise, and the pace depends on your brain, your context, and the friction in front of the first step. Think of time as your inventory and energy as the electricity that lets you use it. You don't run out of hours because the clock is unfair. You run out of usable hours because your energy is spread thin or pointed the wrong way. When you allocate energy first, the calendar quietly starts cooperating again. Under the hood, 3 neurochemical signals matter for habit formation. Dopamine drives initiation. It rises not only when you get a reward, but also when you predict a near doable action, which means the first move must feel light and immediate. Noradrenaline manages alerting. It raises the signal-to-noise ratio, so a cue actually cuts through, and you launch instead of scrolling. Acetylcholine narrows focus. It helps you lock onto one task in one context and ignore the rest. The main saboteurs are familiar. Rapid context switching that resets attention, ambiguous first steps that stall dopamine's go response, and distant rewards your brain can't bind to the behavior. The famous 21-day claim grew out of a surgeon's observation about how long people needed to feel used to a change. It was never a controlled habit study. Real automaticity rises gradually and then plateaus. Early days are about getting from zero to I can start without a wrestling match. Later days are about smoother starts and fewer negotiations. If you expect a magic switch at day 21, you'll misread a normal plateau as failure and quit right when the circuits are starting to stabilize. Here's the reframe that makes this practical. You don't build a habit as a yes or no event. You shape automaticity until it's reliable enough to survive a bad mood and a busy morning. That shaping accelerates when 3 things are true. The cue is stable, the first action is trivially small, and the reward is close enough that your brain notices. You will miss days. The point is not perfection, it's shrinking the energy toll of returning so low that restarting is easier than ruminating. Let's clear up a few persistent myths. Repetition alone is not enough if the context keeps changing. Your brain learns this action here after this cue, not this action anytime, anywhere. Motivation is helpful for day 1, but unreliable for day 10. Design wins because design shows up when you're tired. Streaks help only if they reduce decisions. If they raise anxiety, they convert a learning curve into a pass-fail test. And duration is not destiny. Some people will feel self-starting in roughly 6 weeks. Others will need several months because their behavior is complex or their environment is noisy. If you're the second case, nothing is wrong with you. You're just training in tougher conditions. What does evidence actually say about timelines? Observational work tracking, daily automaticity, shows an average of about 2 months to reach a strong self-starting level, with wide variation driven by task complexity and context stability. Consistent cues and immediate, modest rewards push the curve up. Variable settings and long delay outcomes flatten it. Neuroscience explains the feel. With consistent repetition, control shifts from effortful frontal systems toward more automatic loops in the habit circuits. That shift is gradual, not binary. You help it by removing ambiguity at the start and by keeping cue action reward tight enough for your brain to connect the dots. So what can you do today that you will actually feel? Use 2 levers you can sense within 1 session. First, reduce start friction until the first move feels slightly underwhelming. If the goal is reading, the action is not finish a chapter. It's open the book and read the first sentence. For training, it's not complete a full workout. It's put on shoes and do the first set. The tiny start isn't the goal. It's a dopamine-friendly on-ramp that makes launching likely. Second, bundle context, so attention isn't leaking. Put the tool where the cue happens and chain the behavior to an existing, reliable anchor. After I make coffee, I open the draft and type the first line. After I brush teeth, I do the first set of squats. Context bundling turns one trusted cue into 2 and trims away the micro-choices that drain noradrenaline. Let the timeline be realistic and kind. If your habit is simple and tied to one place and one time, you might feel it become self-starting within 4 to 6 weeks. If it's complex, spread across locations, or attached to slow rewards like learning an instrument or building savings, think in seasons rather than weeks. You're not chasing a number, you're watching for 3 markers. You start without bargaining, you restart quickly after misses, and your mood no longer predicts whether it happens. Here's a compact 20-minute protocol you can run right now. Set a visible timer for 20 minutes and place it where you can see it count down. State today's cue in one clear sentence so your brain knows what to listen for. Make the first action so small it's hard to refuse and speak it aloud. Remove one obvious obstacle in arm's reach. Close the distracting tabs. Place the phone in another room. Put the tool directly in front of you. Begin immediately and defer judgment until the timer ends. When it rings, mark a visible finish. Your brain can learn to crave tomorrow. Tick a paper box. Drag the task card to done or put a bead in a jar you can see. Then take a short reward that does not undercut the behavior. A slow breath by an open window, a sip of something you enjoy, a minute of daylight. The sequence is cue, tiny start, uninterrupted run, visible finish, brief reward. Repeat the same sequence tomorrow with the same cue to compress learning. If you want a small boost without creating a ritual checklist, run a 1-minute energy audit you can observe. Ask, what single friction point makes the first 30 seconds harder than necessary? If tools aren't ready, place them before you sleep, so the morning brain has no puzzle to solve. If your mind wanders at launch, write a 1-sentence instruction and put it exactly where the cue happens. If competing obligations collide, schedule a shorter rep earlier and make it the default. Your aim is not to design a perfect system. It's to make the first move friction light enough that your brain says yes before excuses can assemble. Across 1 week, treat this as an experiment rather than a pledge. Choose one behavior, one fixed cue, and one tiny first action. Track only whether you started within 2 minutes of the cue, yes or no. At day 7, review the pattern, not your feelings. If you logged fewer than 5 successful starts, lower friction again or tighten the cue to a more reliable anchor. If you logged 6 or 7, increase the action slightly while leaving the first step the same. That is how automaticity scales without drama. The start stays tiny and dependable while the middle grows. The real timeline replaces the myth. For simple, tightly cued behaviors, expect a handful of weeks to get launched without friction. For complex or multi-context behaviors, expect several months, with the understanding that seasons of life will reshape cues and may require a brief reset. None of that is a reason to delay. The curve starts rising the moment you make the first action small, the cue stable, and the reward near. Do that today, and you'll feel a tangible win inside this hour. If this helped you cut through noise and actually start, keep the momentum by running the same 20-minute sequence tomorrow with the same cue. If you want more science-backed, no-hype protocols like this, you can follow along here and share this with someone who needs a kinder, more realistic path to change.